of information that's circulating that the Minister of Health working on getting the new hospital moving, which might cost $100 million to build, but that hospital would also include the tourism hospital that we always talk about at Simpson Bay. Do you have any indication about what's going on with this? Is there any discussion taking place regarding this new hospital, which include SZV?
Indeed, as you rightfully pointed out, it's the responsibility of the Minister of Public Health, and there was, however, a discussion in the Council of Ministers, and what has happened is the Minister asked to put on hold the instructions or the agreement or the letter given by the Council of Ministers of the previous cabinet for the SZV to pursue the project with financing and coordination done, I think it's by the VAMET group, which was a project of $100 million without any bid. Besides that, apparently when the minister did some research, it turned out that $70 million was for the expansion and equipment of the St. Martin Medical Center, and $30 million was going towards the portion, because it would not be in Simpson Bay. It would all be on the premises of the St. Martin Medical Center. So the, how you call it, the medical tourism part of it would be like a wing at the hospital, and that would be constructed for some $30 million. No input apparently from any one of the companies. Apparently, and I don't have enough information to think, so therefore these kind of questions are always dangerous, in the sense that tomorrow a headline would read that the Prime Minister said this, and while it may not be so. But it appears that the idea behind that was that rather than have someone own the facility and dictate what they will or will not do or when they will do, the facility would be then owned by a combination of SFVs with the St. Martin Medical Center, whoever, and then whoever wants to carry out medical tourism procedures can make use of the facility, can rent the facility, or what have you. I do not have the finer details of it, but the only thing I can confirm is that the Council of Ministers took a decision to put the VAMET deal on hold, and the Minister of Public Health is busy with the process, which will most likely include some sort of a bidding, not only by one institution only. So I rather the minister himself, who has said that he does not want to come and make statements every week about something that is not yet clear even to him. He would rather do his research, do his homework, and when it's clear on the way forward, how he intends to tackle it. But it is contrary to what the leader of the UP party tried to do, is give, he's becoming now the usual spin doctor, trying to give a different angle to things, and to make it appear that what is going on in this government is like, whoa, but no one has said that the hospital or public health is not a priority. It is a priority, certainly for the Minister of Public Health, but it is one that will be transparent. It will one that be done above board and would be clear to all. To jump into, because the leader of the UP makes it sound as if there were plans approved and a building ready to go, and this government came and stopped it. There is absolutely nothing to that effect. What you have basically is a $100 million agreement, and the question is based on what? What makes it 100 million? What are you getting for 100 million? How do you fill it all in, and why only one company was involved in the process? Was there a bidding between 4 or 5 companies based on the terms of reference, and then at the end of it, it was said, okay, we are going here or we are going there? So it is something that the minister rightfully wants to review, wants to examine and decide how he will tackle it on the way going forward, but it is a priority for the government and for the ministry.
Minister Marlin, if I remember last year, sometimes we have to go back to last year because we're just next door. You said over and over that the Minister of Justice will be sworn in before Christmas.
You see, this is exactly the thing whenever people ask, and one of the things that I always tell you is, let us report news and not try to make it. But when you ask certain questions, if I say, well, wait until the process is over and he will be sworn in, then the answer will always be when. Yes, the idea was that the Minister of Justice would be in place before the end of the year. It did not happen, but the process is ongoing, and we hope, and the answer today and the final answer would be, as soon as the process is over, you will be the first to be notified.
You cut my question. What I'm going to ask you is that what is holding up the process? What is
As soon as the process is completed, you will be the first to get a phone call, and you will be told the process is completed and you will be sworn in tomorrow.
Tricky Penny.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw, for your questions. We now go over to Mr. Hilbert.
Right. Okay, good morning. Prime Minister, is there any news about the appointment of William Brooks as the definite manager at GB?
If there is, sorry?
Is there any decision taken about the appointment of William Brooks?
The Council of Ministers, or rather there will be a general shareholders meeting. I think it was scheduled...
January 28th?
Scheduled for January 28th, I think. And in that meeting, a decision will be taken on the appointment of a CEO and possibly other members to the management of GBE.
Oh. Okay, thank you. Question for Minister Jacobs. When children are in school, they are covered by insurance, right? But if they go to after-school activities, they are not. Is there a possibility to extend that insurance that they have while they're in school to the after-school activities?
I was not aware that the insurance or the after-school programs are functioning without insurance, so this is something that I will definitely take
I don't
up.
know if that's with
You
all
don't know
of
for
them,
sure?
but with some of them I hear that and
But this is something that we will have to look at. Of course, if it has a serious financial line attached to it, I cannot commit to that at this point. And that's, of course, with us wanting to have more after-school programs, there's always a budget attached to it, and that's why it has gone so slowly. So this is something that you're now bringing to my attention, which I will have to do some research on.
Okay, thank you. What's happening with the parking lot here in front of our door, Mr. Marlin? I mean, it seems all to be ready, but not functioning of the new equipment.
That's indeed an interesting subject. To put everything into proper perspectives, when I was Commissioner Minister in 2012, 2013, it's one of the things that, for me, was a real problem. From where I sat at my office, I can look straight down at the parking and would sometimes stand in the window and point out to people, look at the mess that this is creating. Having one entrance and the entrance is the same exit created and continues to create an enormous traffic jam in and around Back Street, sometimes all up to Front Street, and by the Windward Islands Bank, etc. That is why we have decided to invest in it. The equipment was installed, was on the island before I left office in 2013. For some strange reason, it was not installed. It stayed there 2013, 2014, 2015. After the motion of no confidence, all of a sudden, government started working like never before. The government, after a motion of no confidence, did more than they have done in the entire 9 months before. And one of it was to hurriedly make it appear as if the government was ready to open up the parking lot. The government was going to do something about it. Somebody wanted to stick a feather in their cap. From my understanding, it is ready to become operational. One of the things that we were not happy with, because it was not done, definitely not in consultation with this Council of Ministers, are the big boulders that were dragged in from somewhere and kind of defaced the whole area. When I think it was the Minister of Education even raised concerns about it, we were told, don't worry, we will have some school children paint them nicely and make them look nice. We believe that we don't need to deface somewhere in order to get people to abide by the law. If parking is forbidden there, or you should not drive over to escape paying, then the perpetrator should be punished accordingly, or put other measures in place rather than dragging big rocks and boulders that defaces the entire area and environment. I have not been able yet to meet with Mr. Rick Martina, who should know more about it, but I promise you that in the press briefing next week, if it is not yet operational, I will have all the information as to why it is not yet. The idea is that the entrance would be in front of Windward Islands Bank, one entrance only, but only coming from, you make a right turn to enter the parking lot. So you cannot come, let's say, like from Kentucky and make a left turn. You cannot cross over.
Yeah, okay.
When leaving, you leave the parking lot in front of the former fire station, and you make a right turn only. So no crossing. If you want to, for instance, go to Back Street, you would have to enter Back Street somewhere else. And if you want to enter Back Street, let's say by the church, the Baptist church, then you would have to make a right, come in front of the government building, go and then think. So we're trying to make the traffic circulation much easier, much smoother than it has been. So definitely next week, if it is not yet operational, you will get the full details as to why not and when.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Hilberhard. We now go over to Mr. Cornelius.
Good morning still. Good morning to. My first question is to the Prime Minister. I know the Minister, Richard Gibson, is not around, but maybe you can assist us with that question. It's concerning the number plates. We know that they were going to do he proposed some regulations in terms of not everyone paying the same cost for the number plate or the same. If there's any, I need to get some clarity on this because he's not around, so I don't know if you can assist.
No. What took place is that the former government presented legislation to Parliament to increase the number plates across the board. They were doing so because they wanted to generate more revenues for the budget. What the minister did was withdraw the proposal from Parliament, but also members of Parliament themselves were not happy with the proposal, and a different approach was going to be used, whereby people with a more expensive car pay a higher rate than someone with, you can get a car for a brand new car for $10,000, but you can also get a brand new car for $80,000. So the one driving the $80,000 car might have to pay more or will pay more, but they're also, so therefore there is no definite direction as to where it will go. There's also that school of thought that says, hey, pay by the weight. So if you have a vehicle that weighs 2 tons and a vehicle that weigh 500 kilos, that the guy that has a 2-ton vehicle should pay more than the one who is driving a lighter vehicle. And this has to do more with the wear and tear that a 2-ton vehicle would have on the roads, as opposed to one that weighs 200-300 or 2,000-3,000 a pound. So there is no definite proposal that is on its way to the Council of Ministers or to Parliament as yet.
All right, thank you very much. Minister Jacobs, we have seen that several schools on the island were closed and were merged. We have a lot of standing empty buildings lying around. Are there any immediate plans for those buildings?
Mr. Cornelius, good morning. The Charles Leopold building, Colby, and the Lennon Connor School merged. That's the only school that merged at this time. The intention at the time was to start, I believe, in the beginning of school year 2015-16 with the Educational Care Center at that location in Colby, which has been vacated by the Charles Leopold Bell School. So that is still up to now our intention in having the location evaluated over the holidays. There are quite some repairs, and that was also part of the reason certain things had to be repaired before it could be usable. And so we're looking at the easiest, fastest route to get that done so that the Educational Care Center, which is a behavior modification program, can be started in a pilot form at that school as soon as possible. Also, if you're referring to another school that may have moved, that would then be the Prince William Alexander School, which relocated to the Belvedere School, which was also standing empty, a brand new school for quite some time. That school is there until the reconstruction takes place. I have not yet met with our counterparts at Vromi to see how far they are with that. But prior to leaving in 2013, we had preliminary plans. So I'm hoping that these have, in the meantime, gone on bid, and I'll be able to update you on that when I get the update from them. So those were the only two schools. The St. Martin Vocational School also has some students temporarily using the upper level at the Belvedere location, the Alma Fleming School, which houses the Prince William Alexander School at this time. And for 4 classes, because I don't know if you knew there was a over-registration or underestimation in terms of how many students would be needed there for the school year, and therefore they had more students than they were able to house at South Reward, at the vocational school. So 4 classes are there, and in the meantime, ground has been broken and a structure has started on the property next to the school for the 4 classrooms that they're missing.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cornelius. We now go over to Ms. Judy.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson, and I just wanted to say Happy New Year to the ministers present.
Thank you.
Minister Marlin, regarding the new government administration building, you provided some info on that, but can you indicate how much SZV will be purchasing the building for, and also what's the catch? I mean, what's in it for them?
What's the what?
What's in it for them?
What's in it for them?
What's in it for them? As I think I'd mentioned, is like killing about 2-3 birds with one stone. One of the problems the government of St. Martin has had is with part of the entire instruction that was given by the Kingdom government has to do with the outstanding debt that the government of St. Martin has to SZV and the pension fund, but also the debt that the government has been accumulating based on budgets not being balanced over the past years. So the government had to ensure that the debt to SZV and APS, some sort of agreement be reached. So it isn't so that the government had to write a check for 160 million and do away with that debt immediately, but government had to bring some structure to it that indicates that government was serious about addressing it. So what we have done is come up with a formula whereby the building will be sold to them I think it's 45 million. We will sell the building for. They, in return, would finalize the building and equip the building based on government's terms of reference in terms of the kind of furniture we would want and the kind of IT technology and hardware, software that we would need. And then they would rent the building back to government. The amount that is sold, the building is sold for, will be deducted from the amount that we owe them. On top of that, we also have pledged all the money that will come from the boedelscheiding, so the division of assets of the former Netherlands Antilles. It is estimated that St. Martin will be entitled to some 60 million. We have pledged the entire 60 million towards the reduction of that debt as well. In the meantime, the savings that we would generate from the difference between what we are renting different buildings for now and what we will rent the new administration building from SFVPS, APS for. The savings will also be used towards bringing down the debt. So rather than having a 30-year agreement with them, we will have a much shorter period. So we will buy back the building after a number of years, but there's also the possibility of allowing them to own the building longer, and the longer they own it, you know, the more they make on the building, but the idea is to buy back the building from them. So it is a win-win for government and for them, because they will be not reducing, their debt will be taken care of, so the amount that government owes them will be taken care of, and government would be able to move in to the building, cut back on the amount of rent that we pay externally, and occupy a building that has been there for years now. And what you see is, you know, it's basically waste of money, because the building is standing there, it's not being utilized, and government is spending millions every year to rent buildings all across Phillipsburg.
Just to follow up on that, the 45 million, and I assume that's guilders?
Yes.
45 million guilders. How is that divided between SZV and APS? Who pays what?
The technical details of it, I would not be able to spell out right now. It is not signed off to the letter. These are just the broad headlines of what we are busy with. Why we are bringing this forward as well is it's all part of the open and transparency approach that the government has. We cannot provide you with details if we do not have them, but we want you and the public to know, of course, that there is a discussion going, there's a basic agreement, and today, as I said, I will have a follow-up meeting with one of the key players in terms of the way forward, because it is a priority and we cannot afford to sit on this for another 6 months.
I was going to ask a two-part question, and the second part of that question is how much, if you have, can you give us an indication as to how much government will be saving in rent? Because if you know you'll be saving, you obviously know how much you'll be paying and how much you'll be saving.
I don't want for next week somebody to come back and tell me, you said government would save 10 million and government is saving 8 million. I don't want to say we are saving 3 million and then it's 2.5 million. So as soon as all of those accurate details are available, I will share them with you.
Thank you so much. And my next question is for Minister Jacobs. At an earlier press briefing, I was not here, but you raised the issue of NIPA. My colleague had asked the question. Can you give us an update as to what is happening there?
Similarly to Mr. Marlin, I did tell your colleague at that time that NIPA is one of our priority issues. It was a priority for me back as minister. It was a priority when I saw how things were going when I was a member of parliament. And now that I am back here as minister, I had to, there was a process already started.
Yeah.
And so the process continues. Lastly, I believe I stated that a request was made for a meeting from my office. Certain documents had been pending from the institution which have not been handed in, and so the next step will be taken. And when we are finalized with that process, then we'll be able to share more information with you.
Yeah.
But the ministry is definitely taking all steps necessary to be able to have that institution running the way it should in order to provide the students and staff there with the necessary support.
Yeah, you indicated
Thank
the
you, Ms.
last...
Fitzpatrick. Due to time constraints, can your colleague allow for a question?
No questions.
Thank you, sir. Considering the way we have created the format,
Can I ask the questions for him?
Considering the way we've created the format, let's go over to the second round. And considering the time constraints, I allow for one follow-up question per every media. We start with Ms. Bibi Shaw, please.
Minister Marlin, I'll take it from where my colleagues left off with the SZV and the government building situation. Can you tell us exactly, if you have that figure, how much money in debt does the government of St. Martin owe both SZV and APS in combination? How much the total is? Because you're giving us the 45 million plus the 60 million.
That amount has been published 110 times, and I therefore would not want to today mention amount and then somebody go and say, he's not telling the truth because it's 5 million off. But it's somewhere between 140 to 160 million, I think it is.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. We go over to Mr. Cornelius. Any questions?
150?
Mr. Hard?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
One question, Mr. Marlin. Is it correct that there are plans to charge businesses for the garbage collection?
Businesses, I think right now, businesses, in the garbage collection contracts, it does not include collecting garbage from the businesses. Businesses are responsible for disposing of their garbage. So they have always paid contractors. That is why if you drive up Front Street, you would notice different vehicles at times removing garbage from Front Street from the business places. The tender documents for the garbage collection was, I think, the tender documents were placed in newspapers on Monday. So that would have the details of it. I do not have the details of everything, but they have been in both newspapers, so the information can be verified from there.
Okay, thank you.
Prime Minister, I have a question for you. It's concerning the students in the Netherlands. You said they will be able to, you're trying to get them to participate in the elections coming. But let's say, for instance, we have a student who has been studying in the Netherlands, has voted already in elections, and decide to live there. Wouldn't that pose a problem after a while? Because the person might say, I'm still a student, I study at night, I go to school, but they actually are residing in the Netherlands.
Once the student is registered as a student, that is what we're saying. Students, I did not say St. Martiners residing in Holland, and that is why I use the example of my sister. So whether you choose to live there 30 years, or you choose to live there a year, or 2 years, or 5 years, you're no longer a student, you have now become a resident. You have studied. The reason why you can't vote is because while you are studying in the Netherlands, you cannot be registered here. When you complete your studies and you want to return, you return. If you don't want to return, for whatever your reason may be, that is something, let's say, for a future endeavor to see how we are going to get St. Martiners residing in Holland, because one of the technicalities that you would encounter would be who will be allowed to vote. Is it everybody with a Dutch nationality? Is it everybody with a Dutch nationality who once upon a time was registered on St. Martin? Would it be only somebody with a Dutch nationality born on St. Martin? So these are difficult areas to discuss, particularly on such short notice. The focus of this proposal would be students who were residing in St. Martin and left St. Martin to go to the Netherlands for studies and had to write out of St. Martin in order to register in the Netherlands. We will give them, or we are trying to give them, the opportunity to vote. Once you do not meet that criteria, then you can vote.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Minister Jacobs, I just wanted to follow up on the issue with NEPA. I know the last time you indicated that you were not receiving cooperation from them. Are they still not cooperating? Have they scheduled a meeting? And you mentioned that a next step would be taken. Can you shed some light on what that next step is? And it's actually a two-part question. And the second part of my question is that there's a very high level of absenteeism in public schools. I understand it's very chronic. Are there any steps being taken to, what can be taken to alleviate this problem? Because at the end of the day, it's the students that are being affected, and the teachers who do show up to school are being strained.
In relation or finalizing the question you had on NEPA, the last communication with the NEPA did not secure a meeting, and so the next step has been taken, and so I'll await a response from them before we are able to take the next step. As per the, you mentioned chronic absenteeism, is that pertaining to teachers?
Educators, yes.
Oh. Absenteeism with teachers, actually this government has realized since the last time, well, most of us that formed the government the last time, that the morale of teachers in general is pretty low, and that there is something that we had to do about that. It is under that guise that I organized, at that time, teachers' conferences, management conferences, as well as school board conferences, to get to the bottom of the problem. The recommendations coming out of that, some of them have been passed on or have been implemented within the ministry, and at this point I have a group, a commission, that is studying or looking at comparing what has been done over the past 2.5 years, what still needs to be done, and actually going back to the teachers to get their feedback on the way forward in terms of how they feel the ministry has been dealing with their ongoing issues. Absenteeism, having come from the field myself and having suffered under it as well, chronic, I think you would have to have the numbers to substantiate it. I know that absenteeism, being sick, is something that doctors determine. So I am not going to sit in judgment on whether someone is really sick, yes or no. We have implemented possibilities for some substitute teachers. We've been also, over the years, added assistant teachers who have been able to alleviate some of the issues. However, I haven't had a recent report to state that this continues to be one of the large problems, but we are looking in general at teacher morale in terms of their perception of what some of the bottlenecks are within their vocation and having their input in addressing them. So this ministry still has that, or this minister still has that as a priority. To be able to get quality education, you must have quality teachers, and they must be motivated and passionate. So we are looking at setting up actually a Education on the Move project, which will bring more awareness of education, not just to the schools, but to the community. And in promoting teachers, we are looking at many other ways in making them feel more valued in this society.